Hello and welcome everyone to this amazing live session that I'm super excited about. This is around how to get started in real estate investing. And this is something that I've been very interested in, and I am so glad that my partner, who I have done some properties with and bought some real estate, is here now, all the way from Memphis, Tennessee. And we're going to have this conversation so that somebody in the audience who wants to get started in real estate investing has some sort of a direction and can perhaps learn from our experience how we got from 0 to 20 properties in partnership, and what we did that worked and what were some of the lessons that we had. Now, quick introduction. I'm Arvind Sareen. I'm the chairman and CEO of Copper Mobile, which is a digital transformation company. And we have been very interested in the real estate space as well as an organization, and to bring technology to the real estate business as well. We've had a lot of different clients that we work with in that specific space, and we want to continue to help other real estate companies of different genre who want to bring technology to their business. So hopefully this is going to be valuable to a lot of you people. And can we get your quick introduction, Manish? And thank you for joining this live session.
Thank you, Arvind. It is my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Hello, everyone. My name is Manish Srivastava. I am an Indian American based in Tennessee from last 20 years. I'm partnered with Arvind in real estate venture, and he and I are great friend, and Arvind is a good partner.
Thank you, thank you. And you are even a better partner because Manish has been great. He handles a lot of the operations. I am mostly more focused on our digital transformation space and business, but there's so much learning. And Manish likes to say that I like to go to the auction, I like to go collect the rent, and I like to go see the property when we first buy it. But there are many properties that I haven't seen myself. But here, I want to keep somebody in the audience in mind who may have been thinking about investing in real estate, but they haven't yet found a way, or they have some questions in their mind. So what we're going to try to do is share our experience. Now, keep in mind, this is our experience, and the results that we got were good, but that may not be exactly the kinds of results that you might get. So that's why this is a disclaimer that this worked for us, but it may or may not work for you, and you can try still some of these things. But of course, it was really a lot of fun for us to be doing this. So I guess my question number one is, like, how do you get started in real estate, and how did you get started in real estate yourself?
Yeah, that is a great question. So first thing is right that when I started working in my career, I wanted to have a sustainable financial security, and I explored various options. And real estate was one of the very attractive one based on my research, because it comes with a lot of benefits, right? You're protected against inflation, and also you have tax benefit, and also you can have a cash flow, and you can create a value in the property. You can find the properties of your taste, like a small units, apartment, single family homes, townhomes, commercial, residential. You have various options that you can find what you really want to, and see the value and create a new value in the property.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So if someone in the audience wants to get started and buy their first property, let's say they already have their primary home and they want to get started, and so what's the step one for them? Where do they begin? Should they go to realtor.com and just look for some properties, and what do you think works best?
Right. So of course, it is better to have some idea about the location, that you should already know the location. You should do the market research to find the property, and then you should also look at the finances, that what is your budget, and how much money that you have, and whether you can opt in finances, whether you can opt in finances from the banks, or you have a lender, private lender, and things like that. and then do a lot of research in looking at the future prospects of the area that you're looking for.
Great. So area is one of the key things to focus on. So kind of like the old saying, location, location, location. So then what area did you invest in?
Yeah, so right, when we looked at it, we explored various market, but we decided, Arvind, you and I collectively discussed that, doing this in a metropolitan area, is a good thing to do, because the population is growing. In any city, we should look at the inflow and outflow of the population. If inflow of population is higher, significantly higher than the outflow, then that city is growing. So that was very good thing for the Dallas. And within Dallas, we researched the market that, which county or which area we should focus. So we focused on Dallas, greater Dallas area, within the Dallas County, main city, instead of going to suburb. So those are the things that we did.
So no, I agree. I think also part of the reason that we chose Dallas was because Dallas is the city that I know the best, I guess. Dallas gave me everything I have, and I'm really appreciative, and I thought that it's going to be easier if you know the neighborhoods, if you know what are the different neighborhoods where you can rent your property easier, where you can set up an Airbnb, or you might want to give it on Section 8. So it's important to know that market, because if you're just exploring in a new city that you don't know very much about, then it can be a little bit challenging.
Yes.
So in our case, we chose Dallas.
And I agree that you had a great experience in Dallas, and we knew the city, the knowledge was coming from you, and that was a metropolitan city, and then of course population of Dallas was growing rapidly. So I think it was a decision that we made.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even in Dallas, there's maybe dozens of cities in the Dallas Metroplex area, and we have population that's over 7.5, 8 million people in that Metroplex area. So obviously that was important. The airport, DFW, is one of the busier ones, where a lot of direct flights to cities. So and also a lot of population from California has been moving to Dallas. And you're right, if you see that the population is increasing, then that's definitely a good area. But for a lot of the people in the audience, they may then want to stick to the city that they have their primary residence. Would you agree?
Right, so there is no harm in it. I think that there is a growth in different part of different cities all time. So we need to look at the different pockets within the city, because in real estate market it can be different in every block.
Right.
So you can find your opportunity wherever you are, but basically like do some market research and look for what is going to be like good decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even in Dallas, as I mentioned, there are dozens of cities and so many counties. So we only focused in the Dallas County, which is the area inside of 635 and perhaps to the north of downtown. So the uptown area, University Park, maybe towards the west there is Irving. But then we really stuck to that specific area. And would you like to share if that had some significance in our decision making?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a great decision. We have seen great benefits of that. And again, the thing is that because we have a portfolio of 20 properties, then if you want to have an area that is manageable, and
Yes.
look at the proximity. If your properties are in, like 50 miles apart, then how do we manage them?
Absolutely.
So from the operations and from the management, to your ability or our ability to manage them, it is a good decision to keep properties in a confined area.
Absolutely, absolutely. So maybe if you have plans to get 2 or 3 different properties, then find those within your neighborhood, within that area that can be easily accessible to you. So no, that's great. So how did you get started in real estate or in our partnership, whatever you'd like to share, so that the audience can perhaps benefit from knowing that what your experience was like? So was it like one fine day you decided to go and buy some properties?
Yeah, so I had some experience of buying properties, before I got into this partnership. So, those property investment, they gave me a good return, and then I also enjoyed doing that. And also, I was able to help a lot of people because tenants who are looking for some housing, I was able to help them, and sometimes I'm flexible with them to make them qualification if they're not qualified, or how much rent we are charging them, or somebody has temporary job loss or something. So I thought it is a great way to create a wealth and also help other people.
And you had your properties already in Memphis as well.
Yes, yes.
So I think you have what, 3 properties in
Yes,
Memphis?
yes.
Your primary residence and a couple of them in the downtown area,
Yes.
as I recall.
Right.
Great. And me myself, first I decided to go by myself, and that decision was more back in February of 2020 when my brother actually moved in. I saw that my townhome wasn't big enough for him and his, at that time, fiance. So then we decided that we would maybe get a bigger house. And the first time I thought about that, I looked at the realtor.com, and I really found that the prices of those properties were market value. And of course, that's what you're going to find as well, that when you go to realtor.com or Zillow, or try to buy from open market, then it's going to be you're going to be paying the market price, right? And that may not also be a bad option, but that's something that may not give you a lot of benefit. So then I looked into foreclosure. So for every county in America, you have on the first Tuesday of every month this foreclosure auction at the county courthouse steps. So then I decided that there was this one really beautiful house. I don't remember exactly the address, but somewhere in that Cedar Hill area around downtown. It was a huge property, and I went and looked at it, and then I went to the auction to wait for that property to come. And I had no idea at all that you are supposed to take all that cash or a cashier's check to that auction. So that's how I got started the very first time. And when I went there, I actually saw the auction happening. Like, there are trustees who would come with a list of properties that they want to auction off, and they would just go ahead and announce that this is the property that is being foreclosed. They would read a disclaimer, and then they would ask everybody in the audience to just bid. And whoever bids the highest needs to produce that cash right there. And that's how we got started. So the very first time when I went there, that property did not show up at all. And I was a little bit disappointed, but that gave me a taste of what the auction is like. And then I went there again the next time, and call it beginner's luck, but I purchased one property, and I have a video that I've done on that. It's in my other channel, the influencer channel. It's at Arvind Serene, and on YouTube. So you can watch that, the experience there when I actually went to the auction. And then the next auction, I went again and I bought a couple more properties. So at that time, then I had my primary residence and 3 other properties. And that's when I met Manish.
Yes.
And you want to continue then? What happened from there?
Yeah, so we discussed, and so first thing is that my impression is that, like, when you and I talked, that our interests were same. Like, you wanted to do something and I wanted to do something, so we got into conversation, and we thought, okay, let's do something and try it together, and then we kind of partnered into it, and that is the
So what was it like the very first time when we went to the auction? We had a third partner as well. She's not with us anymore, but she's the one actually who connected both of us. So then we went to the first auction. What was it like for you?
Well, first auction was it was good to see that how competitive it is. It was good to see that so many houses are being auctioned in a metropolitan area like Dallas, and it was very competitive. It was very crowded. Sometimes we had to face adverse weather. It is cold. It is hot, and you have to be there all day because there is no fixed time that when this property is coming. And oftentimes properties are listed to be auctioned, but they're not really happening. the auction is not happening because the last minute something happens, that auction date get changed, or maybe somebody.
So you mean like for that particular house, that may not show up.
Right.
So you can't really see that, oh, these are the 400 houses that would be auctioned, and I want to pick this one and I want to buy this one. You just really have to go and be prepared that whenever that house, whatever house is coming for auction, you have to just right then make that decision. For me, my first experience was that, oh my God, look at how cumbersome this process is, and can we bring technology into this? Can we do some digital transformation? And in fact, when I took my brother as well, he's like, wait a second, can we not just record the entire stuff, and I could do voice recognition, and there can be some tips, and I can use machine learning and AI, and give you the scoring on this, and give you what is the maximum amount that you can bid on that property. But anyways, that's a conversation for perhaps another live session. The first time we actually purchased a property, right?
Right.
And this is back in April 2020 or 21? 21.
21.
Yes. So this is after almost 1 year later, after my brother came in, and then I decided, I think the first time I may have gone to the auction was July 2020, and then after a few months of purchasing 3 properties, I decided to get into that partnership. And for me, it was because I did not want to do a lot of work. So for those of you are in the audience and you're thinking that I don't really have the time, I'm focused on my startup, so that was me as well. And if you're thinking that, okay, you have a full-time job, but you have a little bit of time that you can take out, then accordingly you can decide whether or not you want to get into the partnership. So for me, I think the main value that I brought was maybe the area knowledge. So initially we would just decide, and we would Google and say, okay, yes, this is the property that we want to buy or not. Is this a good neighborhood? And then maybe the money that I brought into the mix. But I think the most value was added by Manish, because he put in countless hours into this, and just really doing a lot of the work after we've purchased the property, because work just begins at that time. But just to complete that full circle, so you go to the first auction, and I mean, I was myself very nervous. Like, my heart would beat so fast, and almost many times I wanted to bid, but I would not, because I just wasn't sure. And slowly that fear went away. But was it similar for you?
Yes, definitely. So first time, as I recall, right, we did a lot of research, looked at the property, checked their tax outstanding, checked the HOA dues, checked the liabilities, the title search, and all that. And we had a plan. We categorized that these properties in different areas that the critical that we want to really bid, and something that is really on the bottom. So we prioritize them.
Absolutely.
And, we made a spreadsheet with different colors and, and stuff like that. So it was all good, lot of work into it.
And I think my first learning was that the way that we arrange the data needs to be on the basis of the trustee. So again, trustee is the person who's responsible for doing the auction. Trustee is the person that the bank appoints when someone doesn't pay their mortgage or they're behind on HOA. Then they would contact a trustee, and that trustee would put the proper notice and do the paperwork and come into the county courthouse steps to auction the property. And that's where we were. So we thought that, thinking about how the auction is happening, we just need to list all the properties from that particular trustee. So we had 20 different trustees that were coming, and we had like a PDF on our iPad for all of them. And the moment that the trustee would come, it's announced that, all right, we have Jason Reed, and then everybody would just go running and would take a look at what are the properties there, and then immediately our partners would be there searching for that property the moment we get to know the address. And then we're just telling each other that, okay, let's go ahead and bid. And then I think mostly you would ask me and I would ask you, and if I'm going yes, then you were the brave one who would just raise the hand and say 150,000 or 170,000. So I guess then, were you scared at that time when you were buying those properties?
Not in the beginning. I think I was very excited in the beginning, and I was kind of leaning on you that you are from Dallas and you know the area, and you may have done this in the past, and I kind of went as a person who is going to ride on this, and I didn't give a lot of thought to it. But then when I went deeper into it, then I did more research, and then at some point definitely I was more skeptical about it. That sometimes, like, for the audiences, these properties can come with certain risks and liabilities. So people should be very careful about them and looking at those risks and liabilities, and we have to manage those. So that is something that we have done successfully. But at some point when we were exploring how to do this, that was the time that definitely I was a little bit nervous.
No, and absolutely. I think also good entrepreneurs, good leaders are always having that doubt in their mind, and they don't just want to be overconfident about something, and that's what sort of regulates the amount of risk that you want to take. And for me as well, I think I was kind of relying on all of us and our acumen, but then you want to be courageous as well. Because if you don't do anything, then nothing's going to happen. And I think, yes, there was a lot of luck involved. Because how many properties are there that we bought and they got redeemed?
That is about 6 or 7 of them.
Wow. So those 6 or 7 properties we bought, but then it got redeemed, and they paid us the amount that we paid at the auction.
Plus some premium.
Plus some premium, that's interest and maybe the cost for. Can you tell the audience what is that premium that you get? And
right, so I think let's also explain audiences what is redemption.
Okay.
So foreclosure is like foreclosure. I think most audiences already know that, right? That your property is being auctioned. So why property is auctioned? Because somebody didn't pay their taxes, or somebody didn't pay their monthly dues for homeowners association, or somebody didn't pay their mortgage. Those could be 3 reasons the property is being auctioned.
Okay.
Once property is auctioned, that means somebody is going to buy it, right? So it is a competitive bidding, and oftentimes, right, we bid it, we were the winner. Once we bid the property and it becomes our, title gets transferred to us. In certain cases, the previous owner has the right to redeem that property by saying that, hey, I didn't know about this, now I have the money, I want to pay my taxes, I want to pay my HOA dues. So in that case, 6 or 7 instances happened like that for us, and we were able to successfully redeem that. And then what premium we have charged, basically like the cost for our time, certain expenses for the travel, and interest rate for the time that that our capital was involved in this. And sometimes they redeemed after 2 months or 3 months. So we got our premium back, and plus the principal that we paid.
Got it. Okay. So if the property gets redeemed, then you transfer the title back and you no longer own it. You
Yes.
basically get your money back and a little bit of gravy on top.
Right.
Okay,
And
great.
we returned property back to the previous owner.
Makes sense. So what happens when you actually don't have that redeemed? Then what's the next step for you? Once you purchase a property,
Right.
what do you do next?
So the next thing is that then we try to look at the property, like we do physical visit to the property and do the inspection if somebody is living there or not. Let's say property is empty, we can see that there is no connection for the utility, or talk to the neighbors. Then we will take the physical possession of the property, and if somebody is living in the property, then we will knock the door and we'll have a amicable conversation, introduce ourselves, that hey, we are such and such, and this property was auctioned and we are the new owners. And sometimes that individual will be surprised, sometimes they already know it, and we keep our deed and paperwork to show them. And the person may be stressed, so we often acted like like in such a way that we are here to help you out. We are not going to evict you or put you out on the street. We can work out something with you, or we can make you as a tenant or something like that. So we have done a lot of those. So I think 3-4 times that we ended up converting those previous owners to tenants.
Yes. Even right now, I know that there are so many of the previous owners that you worked really kindly with and gave them grace and worked out a solution, a creative solution, because you don't want to evict somebody. Of course, you want to have your boundaries, and as a business, you want to be making money as well. But at the same time, you don't want to create unnecessary problems if there may be a way to make that work. So can you maybe talk about the most interesting or the one example of the property that you bought that was that took a lot of work?
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
But which one is the worst or the best, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, so worst, it's difficult. I think several of them are in my mind, so I can't give one specific example, but I can give something for the audience.
Sure.
So, like when you end up buying something that you really, this is from the auction, so there's somewhat is surprises are always there. So you may find, some elderly person living there, they're disabled, or you may find somebody, the property is in bad shape, everything is trashed. And in one property that we had, this property was nobody was living from past 8 months. When we entered into this property, we had like bread that was expired like 6 months ago, or it was like full grocery was refrigerator and it was rotten and it smelling bad. So we had to experience all those things that. And then oftentimes when we do research, what happened? Somebody went to jail or somebody died, and somebody had some setback in their life. So you get to hear a lot of variety of these stories. So I think it has been this business has been very enlightening to learn so many aspects of life that we don't learn otherwise, because we are living so life with comfort and luxury and happiness. So
wow, no, that's a good way to look at it. Absolutely. And I think you're right that it definitely opens up your mind and you understand what all different situations your neighbors, your community can be in. For me, I think my favorite one was the Turtle Creek property.
I see.
Yeah. So that was in an auction, and I think I bought it for $255,000, and that was an excellent property because it was a penthouse that is in a really nice building, and I knew that building for a very long time. I would often drive by and look at that building and say that, wow, this is super cool. It's in the uptown area, Oak Lawn area, so that's why it is an area where a lot of the youngsters like and nice places to eat. And why it was a really good property for me was because when I went there, I saw that it was empty or it was unoccupied for 1.5 years, and the person who lived there, he had a lot of luxurious items inside that property. Like he had a lot of different shoes, he had unopened boxes, he had watches, he had so many different items like jewelry. And then when I walked in, the concierge that got us to that point, they said, hey, whatever is inside, it's all yours now, so you have to take care of it, you can dispose it. So I know that we called some service to clean that house, but it was relatively cleaner. It has some beautiful views, and then we found so much inside that it was totally worth it. And not only did it have enough equity in it, like the market value of that maybe 400,000, but it also had so much inside it. And you don't get those types of properties very often, but if you do, then you're really lucky. And that's what I said. This was a property that I bought before partnering with Manish. So out of those 20 properties, 7 are my personal, and 13 that we did together. But I think, which one is your favorite one, so we can kind of walk our audience through that journey and they understand this could be one journey of a property, if you will.
I think my favorite property is 1200 Main.
Okay, yes, I love that property as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's,
Tell us more about that. How did you get it and why is that your favorite one?
So it is a very nice location, right, in the high rise in the heart of the downtown of Dallas, and also it is very nice luxury and premium property, and it wasn't easy to get this one, right? So we won the property, and
Did I go to the auction or did you get
no,
it yourself?
actually don't price it, yeah.
Okay.
And then the owner of the property was not living in the property, and he knew that this property had been auctioned for very cheap, like 450K property auction for maybe 20K or something.
Okay.
And that.
And how much did we buy it for approximately?
Like this 25.
$25,000. So for the audience, they may be thinking that, hey, I can spare $20, $30, $40,000. How do you get that $400,000 property for just $25,000? So if you don't mind, be a little bit detailed on this one. This may be of a lot of value to some people.
So sometimes, right, we have to look at it. It can be too good to be true, but sometimes these assets have certain liabilities associated with it. It could be a primary mortgage. It could be tax liability. So we are supposed to do research on these.
So this primary mortgage
Yes.
does not go away? I mean, I know the answer, but I'm trying to get in the shoes of a new investor and asking you this question. So did this property have, like, does the primary mortgage not go away when you do the auction? Okay.
So it depends on which auction it is. So if we are doing and buying the property which is auctioned by homeowners association, that is secondary lien. So primary lien, primary mortgage, primary home loan is going to be attached with that asset.
Also
Until
called
it
the
is
conventional mortgage?
Conventional mortgage.
Okay.
It is going to be attached with the property, and the new owner will be responsible for it. And if that is not paid, the bank lender of the primary mortgage can auction this property back.
Got it. So even if you spend $20,000 in acquiring that property, and if it has $300,000 of mortgage on it, which is the primary mortgage, then the first right lies with the bank who's given the primary mortgage, and they can go ahead and independently auction that property. So then you lose your $25,000 unless you negotiate with them and
Yes.
take over the payments.
Right.
Got it. So yes, tell us more about that property. What happened? So you bought it for $25,000, and then what happens next?
So now, right? So we in our partnership we will build the competency that how to work with those banks, and we have built certain proprietary and confidential approaches that how do we approach the banks and how we bring them to the negotiating table and do the settlement with them so that the liability can be cleaned.
So why did you like that particular property? I mean, you got it so cheaply, or what was it about that property that you
So
liked?
it is first thing, it is in excellent shape. We didn't have to do anything in that property, including cleaning. It was perfect. Just move in. You buy the property and move in. And then this is location, heart of the downtown, high-rise building. It has a lot of amenities in the building. So you have swimming pool, fitness center, you have conference room, you have library.
But you weren't gonna stay there, so
Well, those are the benefits that premium type tenants, they love it.
Yes.
So that we are able to lease that property for the higher price. And in addition to that,
So is that what you're supposed to do? As soon as you purchase a property, let's say you bought it for $25,000, then you go ahead and lease it out,
Yes.
because officially you're the owner.
Yes.
It may have a mortgage on it, and you obviously keep your eyes open for if there may be any foreclosure that's happening from that primary lender, and then you just at least get some of your money back by renting that property, right?
yes. So that is the clever thing too, because property is an asset, right? So if we put money into it, we have to put it to work, right? So that is the only way we work to do this. Either we put it on rent or you flip it. So we have done various things in our business, but most of the time, given the market conditions, we are leasing it, and it is giving cash flow. So it is a better decision to put the property back on the lease as soon as you can, so that you can have cash flow coming from it. And it is possible that you can recover your 25K in a few months.
Yeah. Nice.
We have done it. So
Yes, absolutely. Okay, great. So that's one type of property that you would get if you go to the auction. What are some of the other ways to acquire these properties? If you're somebody who does not want to take too much risk or doesn't have too much time, then what are some of the other types of properties that you can acquire at the auction?
Right. So auction, right? Like I said, that you can buy the tax sale.
Okay.
So that the auction is there for the people who didn't pay the tax.
Okay.
And then you can also buy the properties from the primary mortgage, people who couldn't pay their mortgages because they lost the job or they had some issues or they, so those are the buying properties.
And
when
are
it
there
is-
any others? So there is tax one, then there is the
Only
primary
three.
lender,
Yes.
and what's the third one?
Homeowners Association auction.
HOA, and could it be a secondary mortgage that's going for auction as well?
That is secondary mortgage, but I can consider it primary mortgage. It's same thing.
If you purchase on the secondary mortgage and there is a higher,
then yes.
then you have to be careful and you have to negotiate with the primary as well.
Yes.
Makes sense. So there may be multiple types of properties.
Yes.
And what's sheriff sale? Do you know about it very much?
Sheriff sale is the same thing like auction. It is done by the Dallas County
Okay.
or the county of the house. There is no.
We haven't purchased any from there, right?
They call it same. Some people call it sheriff sale. I think I could be wrong, but I consider them like same.
Okay, got it. All right, so these are the 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that you could get a property from the auction. So then you purchase the property, then you wait for that period of 90 days, or at times is it 180 days as well? Do you know what's the law?
Right. So for each purchase, there is different law.
Okay.
And each state has a different law. So I want to be, cautious with the audiences that if you hear this, and if you're living in California, there may be different law, or if you're living in Georgia, different law. So for Texas, and again, I'm not the legal expert, and audiences should take their own legal advice. For homeowners association, that redemption is 90 days.
Okay.
Period is 90 days. For tax sale, I believe that is 180 days.
What about the primary mortgage?
There is no redemption. That is the beauty of that.
Oh, so you buy it and the deal is final.
It's done. You
Got
can't
it.
do it because that is like primary mortgage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is no way that anyone can redeem that.
No.
Understood. So then you buy that property and then you go knock on the door, right? That's the first thing that you would do once the redemption period is over. And then the previous owner comes out, or it is abandoned. If it's abandoned and then it's locked, then what do you do?
Then we will make sure that nobody is living there. Then we can call locksmith and take physical possession and break the lock and take control of the property because we have the title.
Got it. If it's abandoned, then you can go ahead and take control of the property. What if you think it's abandoned, but it's really not abandoned, and you call you call the locksmith, you open the door, and you see a living cat inside?
It happened with us. Yeah. So in that case, we have to be like working with people, right? So what we have done in that case, that we close the lock and we put a sticky note on the door and inform the owner that hey, we came here, we are such and such people and we are the new owner, please contact us. And most of the times they call us back and we discuss with them and we were able to work out a deal for them that is good for them as well.
Got it, good. So then we covered if it is abandoned, then you call the locksmith. If you knock on the door and somebody opens the door and they're really angry, then what are you supposed to do there?
Right. So if the other person is angry, right, we can be angry, right? We are professional and we have a business. So we explain them, we educate them. In most cases, right, we told them that hey, you don't have to be upset, you don't have to be angry. We will work with you, and you will feel free to go and consult with your lawyer. This is the piece of paper, and you can take this and take appointment with the lawyer and take the feedback. So that is how we were able to calm down. And there was the individual went to the lawyer and took the independent advice, and then they were able to have better conversation.
So it's kind of like they have to accept, and sometimes they may be in the shock.
Right.
So did that happen to us?
Yeah, I think
Preston Tower?
Yeah, in 2 or 3 instances, they were in the state of denial that there was no outstanding amount, and they really were current on their homeowners association dues.
I know Royal Lane happened that too.
And then they think that they challenge this auction, they are going to do this and that. But again, fact is a fact, and law is a law. Once you have a title, you have a deed on your name, and you have proper documentation, that the previous owner, usually they end up accepting the facts.
Got it. And then they may want to work with you to lease it back to them, or there may be other options.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to sell it back to them. Has that ever happened?
Yes, few people they requested resale also, but we did not end up selling to the previous owner because usually they don't pay the same amount.
Right.
They want to buy for less.
And you want to obviously, as a company, sell it at market price,
right.
whatever maximum you can get.
Right, and they think that that is unfair, that they're losing the property, and this guy is asking fair market price. So we did not really flip that way, but we flipped few properties by putting them in the market, by listing them and selling them at the fair market price.
I think the first one where we had the third investor, we actually ended up selling that property off. And did we make money in that?
Yeah, we made decent amount.
Just tiny bit.
We made decent amount.
Okay.
Maybe like close to 70K or something we made on that one.
So between the three of us,
Yeah.
got it. So that was one. So is that typical? Like, what is a typical amount that you would make in one property? I mean, I know it's a hard question, but give me a range if you wouldn't mind, because I know that's going to benefit people. Like if somebody in the audience thinks, okay, well, I can go and maybe take 50, 100,000 and just try to see if there may be an HOA property or a property that may be not very expensive that they want to buy, whatever way, whether they buy the primary mortgage or the primary lender out, or they buy the HOA property or the tax lien, then can you explain that scenario? Like, what do they expect?
That is a good question. So, again, like that is in my personal view, and you can add how you see it. But this process takes a lot of time and energy into it. And personally, I would like to at least make 100K or more in any property. If I'm putting my hands, or that then at least it should be that much money.
But does it depend on how much money you put in, or it's 100K flat?
I mean, no.
Or that's the minimum.
That is the minimum.
It's kind of like here at Copper Mobile, Copper Digital, we have a certain minimum. We would like to get the $100 million deals or the $10 million deals, but usually we end up with $1 million engagements, and then we still have our minimum that we would want that engagement to have at least $100,000 that comes in. Otherwise, there may be too many customers that we're not able to pay attention. So is this something similar?
Yeah, it is similar. So now again, that is the wishful thinking, right? But sometimes you may not be able to make that much money, but then you hold on to the property and wait for longer time. So until you see that potential at least 100K. That is how I like to see it. But not every property can give 100K. There is no guarantee about it.
Right.
But that is like kind of benchmarking thinking that I like to see that.
Got it. So generally, you want to be around 100K on every property that you buy.
It can be more, but not less.
Okay, got it. And it does it depend on the amount of money that you're putting in?
Not initial 100K. No, it doesn't depend. But again, like most properties, right? We are not buying multi-million-dollar houses because we buy, like personally, you and I have been on the same page that we buy the units within certain budget, like let's say less than 300K.
Right.
And then within that budget, it should give 100K profit.
Got it. So if you invest about 300,000, then you make 100,000 over what period of time?
It should be. Like, I would think that it should be immediate, right? Because we are specialized in buying assets that are in distress.
Right.
So when you buy assets in distress, typically, we try to buy for 70% of the value. So 100K should be the immediate. But in some cases, it is not immediate. So you wait. How long do you wait? That is really depends on the market economy.
No, but I'm saying typical scenario. If you're expecting $100,000 from whatever property you buy, and at times you may just be putting, like you said, $25,000, and at times you may be putting $300,000. Then how long does that process take? Even if you're not actually selling it and getting 100,000, but for you to have 100,000 in equity, how long does it take?
Oh, that can take like immediately. It can be immediate. It can be few months.
Yeah, you understand why I'm asking that is like you make, let's say, 33% on your money over what period? A lot of the investors may want to know, is this over 1 year?
1 year. I think 1 year is fair to say, but in many cases it is sooner than that.
Makes sense. Now, let's say you got the property and you got the possession, you already negotiated with the tenant, then what are the options that you consider for cash flow or as a next step? Is there a framework that you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, that is a really good question, Arvind. So I think what we have done in cases that we look at each property different, right? So there is no standard template or formula that we kind of repeat in every property. So we look at this property, how we can create the value. So number one option is that, is it rent ready? Now what else I can do it to make a commercial value? If I improve it and put another 20K, do I get more money in the rent? And now if no, then I won't do it. And then second thing, if yes, then we will do it. And then we do the assessment of the property in current market value. If I flip it today, then what we get. Now if we do that assessment and we are getting the targeted profit in that, then we can consider to flip it. But if we are not getting the targeted threshold of the profit, then we will hold on to that property, we will rent the property, we will get the cash flow from it, and keep doing it as long as you can see that again the potential for flipping it.
Got it. Now I see like a sunk cost fallacy in that, right? I mean, I know that we may be of the mindset that no matter how, we want to get at least this much profit, and if it means that we have to hold it, then we hold it. But I know that a lot of the investors, what they would do is you basically make a bet and you go through the process, and then whatever the price of the property is, that's how much you made. Because at that point, whatever that market value is, I mean, you could flip it and then put that money back into the auction, or by spending that amount of money, you could have the same outcomes for another property. At that time, you're in that property at that market value.
Right.
So anyways, that's my opinion. And yes, I think we discussed that there are 4 different ways that we see the future of a property, right? Mm-hmm. Either we flip it, or we put it on a long-term rental, or we put it on a short-term rental, which is like an Airbnb. And also that depends on that particular community or the HOA rules and restrictions. Although in California, you cannot stop anybody from doing that STA or short-term rental. But in Texas, a lot of the communities have a restriction on putting that house on Airbnb, which may be for good reasons, because you want to prevent from a lot of the people who are coming in for a day or two, and that brings some sort of security risks as well. So I understand, but I also understand that as a property owner, you should have the right to make money by doing whatever it is that you can, because Airbnb people also, the people who put their property on Airbnb work so hard and they are trying to make ends meet. So what is your advice for putting your property on a short-term rental? Do you think that that's a good idea if you can?
Yes, definitely, it is a good idea. So as an investor, right, that we want to see that where is the greatest value, and then second thing, can you operate it? Now, if you can operate it, then find somebody who can operate it for you. And definitely there is a greater return on your investment through Airbnb. And if you, of course, your location is right, and if it is, it is desired.
Got it. So then we discussed that the outcome of that particular property that you acquire and that you get the possession could be that you flip it, or you put it on long-term rental, or you put it on short-term rental. Are there other?
Yes. So the other thing, right, that we are exploring for the next venture is the rent to own. So right, we know that a lot of people, middle class and lower middle class people in the United States who do not qualify for a conventional loan because either they do not have a down payment, which is 10%, 20%, or they do not have enough credit that bank can give them loan. So those are the people kind of end up living in rental properties for the rest of their life. So we want to provide an option for those people who can also possibly be on the path of ownership through rent to own program.
Wow, no, that's yes, I remember us having those conversations and bringing technology to do it at scale, and that's where Copper Digital can help as well by coming up with, let's say, an application that anybody could download and then go through that process, look at the properties that are available that they can rent, and then eventually have the ownership in. So essentially, for us as investors, what we're doing is we look at the price that we want to sell at and then calculate what is the rental for that in the market, add a little bit of a premium that goes towards initially the down payment, and then once they've met that criteria, then you actually, what do? You transfer the ownership to them, or?
Only after that period, right? So we agree on that. Let's say we made a deal with somebody for rent to own program for 15 years. So for 15 years, this individual will get this property, and they are going to live into property with a hope, with an expected plan that, hey, after 15 years the ownership will come to them. That means that they have to maintain the house, they have to pay the rent, they have to pay the dues, and those kind of things. So it is a win-win situation.
And plus they take care of the property as well, because
right.
they're going to be eventually owning it.
Right. So that is that is a program that we have. We are yet to launch, but we are shaping that into execution. But that plan has a lot of interest and a lot of inquiries.
Absolutely. I think for a lot of the people, maybe even in the audience, who may not be an investor yet, but they want to be eventually, and right now their first goal may be to own a property with the interest rates where they are. There was a 50 basis point increase, by Jerome Powell. What was it, yesterday?
Yeah, again he raised it.
Yes,
interest rates are so high. I mean, people can't find money. So most people are going to stay in rental for for a long time.
And that's another reason why I really like real estate investments, because even in the time of recession, guess what cash flow does not stop? People still want to live in the houses that they have, and this is not something that you have to go back and again sell. Basically, everyone would continue to pay their rent, but in the long run, if there is a prolonged recession and if your property gets vacated, then it may be harder to put it back on rent. So obviously people have to keep that in mind for sure. Okay. So then once you have one of those outcomes for the property, then you basically just have it on long-term rental. Is there a specific type of clientele that you prefer as an investor to rent it to? Let's say maybe, because some of my properties, maybe not in joint ownership, are with Dallas Housing Authority, right? And those are the ones where the government is actually covering for majority of that rent for people who may have proven the hardship and they may be struggling. So then they are able to get this grant from the government, and then the government just deposits the money in the landlord's account, and then if there's a portion that they're responsible for, then they can pay that as well. So do you prefer those Dallas Housing Authority opportunities, or do you prefer the blue collar workforce, or just like I have one of my townhomes, it's actually a really important person, an executive from an Austin-based company, actually also in real estate, and that's also pretty good rent. I mean, somebody who can afford $5,200 is obviously doing pretty well. So what kind of tenants do you prefer, and what can the investors keep in mind when they're selecting a property in your experience?
Right. So I have used some mathematical model, and also I have used an intuition when I interact with the individual and talk to them on the phone. Certain exceptions I made, and some of those were great exceptions. Sometimes I burned my fingers as well, like anybody else. So in business. So few guidelines, right? When you don't know anybody, right? If you know somebody, then you all, of course, you have an opinion about it. But this is the case that some inquiry is coming for a prospective tenant that you don't know anything about it. So what we do is that we ask them to submit a rental application. In a rental application, we will do the full details of background check, credit history, credit score, and then also rental history, and the income details. So what I try to do is that find a tenant, possibly who at least makes 3 times more than the rent that we are seeking for. So if they are a couple, husband and wife, but together they can make that, or if the person is individual. So for example, if rent is, let's say, $2,000, then person should make $6,000 or more per month.
After tax, I mean, I know then that's referred to as rent to income ratio.
Right.
So then overall they should have $6,000 in income if they want to get a property for $2,000. And you mentioned $2,000, but isn't that sort of the typical rent that we charge for most of our properties?
Right.
And there are always exceptions, but
Right.
that's typically what we charge for a lot of our townhomes, 1 or 2 bedroom apartments that we have.
Right. So minimum again, right? If person is making 10,000, then it's better candidate, right?
Right.
But minimum, I would not.
And what if they have really bad credit, but they're showing you that they're making 10,000? Then would you rent to them?
Yeah. So that is good. So that's where the other factors comes in. So then I will say that if person is having poor credit, but the person has clear rental history, there is no past eviction, the person has rental references, then I can make a few calls that, hey, this person was here for 2 years, did he pay or she pay rent on time? And if I get all clarifications, then I make an exception and I increase the security deposit. So security deposit, like if somebody has a good credit, then typically we charge 1 month security deposit, but if somebody has poor credit but sufficient income, then we kind of charge 2 months security deposit.
So has your intuition proven you wrong ever?
Yeah, I said at least in one instance I was wrong.
Okay, got it. I've been wrong many times, but I think you learn from it, and I think like even that penthouse that I talked about earlier, I gave it to a person who ended up not paying the rent. He's still a great guy, and actually he's still friends. And funny story that he ended up renting our other property, 1200 Main, but I have a promissory note from him for about $6,000 or $7,000 or so, plus whatever damages he had. But I think I should find time and pursue that, because I know he's now making pretty good money, right?
He's making.
Is he paying our rent on 1200 Main?
He's paying, but he has a lot of violations and nuances in the property for neighbors and other people.
Right. He had that same story over there as well. Well, good. So then that's about choosing the right audience for your properties so they can take care of it and you can continue to get rent. What are the options that you would have if you are not getting rent on time? What's that process? How do you go about it? And is that something that you use any technology in, or is there an opportunity for companies like us to come in and develop products?
Yeah, always there is an opportunity to do more and better. But right now, we use some automated software that collects the rents, where tenants can put automation for monthly dues, and if they're not paying on time, and if they're not paying by 5th of each month, then that portal sends notification to them and it will add late fees automatically. But if the tenant doesn't pay after late fees and after those automated reminders, then we have to follow them and pursue them. I think most tenants pays the rent on time, but in few instances when they don't pay, they're not replying to the text, they're not replying to email, then kind of we have to be a little bit firm with them that if you do not pay rent on certain date, then we are going to proceed with an eviction. And I think in most cases then they end up paying.
Right. So then, let's say it is 15 days past due, the rent, then you had the conversation with the tenant and they're like, yeah, actually I'm getting in some challenges, I'll pay you in a week, pay you in 2 weeks. Then what do you typically do with that?
So personally, like we share the same thing. If the tenant or prospective tenant, if they are into conversation, they are sharing a genuine concern, genuine hardship, an example of the hardship, and they are showing a optimistic view that, hey, I'm going to pay next week, I'm going to get the paycheck on Friday, and then I will pay you. Or hey, I can pay 2,000, but I'm going to pay 1,500. That shows that person is making an effort.
Right.
That shows that person has a genuine in continuation of this relationship and engaged in the conversation with full transparency. Then I let them have extra time.
Got it. And yes, I like that as well. But there are some other investors that I know, and it's actually one of our employees who used to work at Copper Mobile. Great guy, I learned a lot from him. But he mentioned that he goes, Arvind, if I don't get the rent by the 13th, I just file the eviction. And then it's up to them to show up with the check, and most of the times they just immediately show up, and plus they pay the amount that it took for filing that court fee or the eviction or whatever, and then they are not late for at least a few months.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be that strict because people have unique situations, and at times as an investor, it really doesn't matter that much if you're losing here and there a little bit of money, but you want to not regret not being kind when you look back. We're all gonna do amazing anyways. We're lucky to have all of what we have and be in a position where we can own multiple properties. But I think just dealing with kindness goes a long way, and I'm of the same opinion as you. Just work with them and understand their unique situation.
Right. And also we have to look at this is an exception, right? If every month they are paying on 15th versus they're like once or twice the situation is there, so we have to look at that whole thing.
Makes sense. What about along the way if you are having challenges with the property that, come summer and then the air conditioning goes down, or other challenges, there's a leak, or there's some other problem that you're facing with the property? How do you deal with that, and what's the advice for somebody in the audience who may want to do this so that they can plan ahead and build that network of handymen or other people that may be required to run a small business, like where there may be 3 or 4 different properties?
Right. So like in any other business, right, you can't do all. So you need a team, you need partners, you need suppliers, and you need to have relationships. So same way in this case, we have few preferred relationship with the HVAC companies. We have plumbers, we have handymen, we have contractors, we have cleaning staff, we have other partners that are there available, and we have to give them proper incentive to be able to go and take care. If the emergency is there, then sometimes we have to pay them for the emergency call also. But that is something that we have a responsibility to give.
Would you say that that's the toughest part of the entire process, or what's the worst part of the entire process?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think that the worst part is that a lot of moving things are there. So like in any business, right, you have to pay attention to it. So let's say, like if we don't pay attention to it, then tenants are not going to pay on time. And if we don't pay attention, then tenants, we will not be able to give, a service that our tenants expect. So contractors are not going to do the right job, they're not going to do the right time, they're going to charge you extra amount for it. So the managing the holistic point, that managing everything together, that means you have to show that you are active, that you have to show that you care about those people, you have to show that you are involved in it, your eyes and ears are there in everything that happens in the business. That holistic thing.
But if you have so many properties, how do you care about every tenant and every property and everything that's going on? I think it gets really tough.
Yes.
What I've seen in my experience, speaking with some other people who have perhaps worked in other industries where there are a lot of processes, there's this concept of preventative care as well, where you go ahead and proactively just inspect all the different areas in your property so that you can almost forecast that, hey, this is a 19-year-old air conditioning unit and I'm probably going to have to replace this, and then you try to be proactive. And I think that's where technology in 2023 can be your friend, where you can look at different tools. There are so many startups and innovative products that are available, and many of these entrepreneurs actually come to us and talk about how they want to build this system and use machine learning, because you could predict based on certain models. If there is data that is input into your model, then you could already know and forecast something like that could happen. Also, I think there are other tools, because I feel like just that whole experience of being available all the time. I mean, you may be in a very important meeting and then you don't want to be getting a call from the tenant. I know for me, I'm very lucky to have you, and you can delegate that to a lot of other people. So then there can be a team. But for others in the audience who would like to get in this business but don't want to be bothered during the vacation, during Thanksgiving or Christmas, to have to go, there is a really amazing startup that we are actually in talks with. I can't disclose too much because of the non-disclosure, but hopefully they're going to be launching soon, and we're going to be building their product where they have a network of these technicians, and if you sign up with them as a landlord, then they take care of all of that for you, not just collecting the rent, which you talked about, which is important and that can be automated, but also taking care of anything that requires maintenance. So it's really cool. I know the founders from my previous engagements that I worked with them. They're based in California, great people, but we're in talks. But I feel like that's another advice that I'd like to offer, that wherever you can, always be on the lookout for technology and how technology can help you, because in the real estate business, there is so much tech that can go in and that can help you do your job a lot easier.
Right. That's a great point, and I agree that in some of the some companies, they are already making like IoT sensors that are going to remind you in your phone that this is the time to change your filter.
Absolutely.
And then if you do preventive maintenance, then of course your sustainability of those appliances or the maintenance issues, they are going to be less often.
What about having a service like, I'm not sure, AHS or other companies similar to that, that would give you a contract, like an insurance on all of your appliances? Have we ever used any of those? And
I have used it, but my experience, Arvind, is that whenever somebody takes you into a contract and somebody takes your money, you don't have any control after that. Because what they do is they will say, okay, within 48 hours I'll send a technician, then technician will go there, then it will take weeks and weeks and months, then they will say, oh, I need this part ABC, I'm ordering the part. So that
they're going to give you a runaround.
You don't have control on the service quality.
Got it. You want to fix that problem for the tenant right then, and you don't want to be waiting. But what if their contract says that you're going to get guaranteed service? I don't think they say that.
They don't say that. They're designed so cleverly that when you read them, they look so good, but when you look at the fine details and execution, they say, oh, we said that we are going to send a contractor within 48 hours, but we never said we are going to resolve issue in 48 hours. Right, so that is like that. But another point that for the audience is that if some of our audiences, they are not looking for larger properties portfolio and doing one or two or few, they can always have professional companies to manage them. Professional management companies that they will take care of all headache part for them, rent collection, tenant screening, and,
So what's typically the commission for hiring a professional company? Let's say I purchased a property for $250,000 and let's say the rent is $2,500. So how much of that do I have to give to that agency who's going to help me keep it rented?
So the agency typically will charge 7 to 10% of the collected rent, but that does not include leasing fees. They will charge leasing fees for like 1 month rent or 15 days rent on top of this, and they will also charge the maintenance, major maintenance, remodeling type projects. They will charge another fees for supervision. But this 10% or 7% fees is kind of ongoing relationship for being a point of contact to take the service request, to collect the rent, and oftentimes evict the tenant if they're not paying, and those kind of things.
Got it. So you think that is money well spent?
Well, it depends on the people, right? If we have certain audiences that they don't want to take the headache, right? I mean, this is business, right? You're having dinner, you're having meeting, you're doing something, you get the text, you get the calls, you have to be responsive. And if you don't want to, do that, and you don't want to make yourself available 24/7, 7 days, then yes, you need a professional management company who are specialized to do this.
Absolutely. No, I think that's exactly the point, right? It may work for some people, but there may be others in the audience who really want to hustle and they want to trade their time for making sure that they have enough profitability and they're maximizing their savings. If they may be younger, then that's definitely the age when you want to really live as cheaply as possible and try to save everything so you can be putting that money towards an investment that could generate your passive income. So I think you're right. But then maybe for someone else that may be not wanting to trade their time because they can get a better return for their time by doing other things, then perhaps this is a good option because this is better than keeping your penthouse empty.
Right. And the other thing, like you can ask, right, we are doing it because we want to learn everything, because you can't simply outsource it to everything
True.
to other people and make profit from it. So this is our way that we are learning know-how of this business. Once we know the know-how, we can better manage the management companies also, because otherwise they have so many excuses. This doesn't work. We need to know so that we can.
And they may also always not go for the most efficient option. They may say, "Oh, we need to replace their air conditioning, so that's $12,000."
That's what they do it.
Absolutely. Well, great. I think I'm not sure if we have more time, or I think the time's already up. But I would like to ask you: is there any last final advice that you would like to give? Like the words of wisdom, the final advice, something that you can tell someone in the audience who may be interested.
Yeah, definitely. So it was pleasure talking to you. You have a lot of experience and a lot of thoughts that you shared as well, and it was great talking to you. For audiences, I would say that if you are interested into real estate, then definitely watch this video and comment and ask questions, and in addition to that start doing it, whatever you would like to do. So if you want to do the smaller property, do it, and experience and learn from it, and building your own portfolio and growing it, it is a great sense of pleasure and achievement. So I appreciate time and attention to so many audiences. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's a wonderful advice. If I were to give an advice, that would be exactly that same. Default to action. I mean, if you don't do it, then anyways, nothing's going to happen. But if you do it, you may fail, but you're going to still learned something. And I think that's really been the motto of my life. And I've burned my fingers a few times, but I feel like just defaulting to action and just doing something, even if you may be a little bit fearful, it just in the long run works out. But you want to be hedging your bets a little bit, just like I found somebody really smart to help me monitor some of the things. If you're lucky, then partnering can be another way, because collaboration is the way that you can succeed. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate it. And if you like this session, then go ahead and leave a comment. We'd be happy to share everything that we've learned, because we feel like sharing it with the community is the only way that we would eventually benefit as well, because then there could be so many new doors that we could open. And also, if you may be interested in digital transformation or just having a conversation about technology, we're really passionate about technology as well. Even Manish, he works in the technology field. And of course, myself, I run a small startup that is very interested in digital transformation. So if you have something that you'd like to talk about and get an opinion on, we'd be happy to do a feasibility analysis or do some sort of t-shirt sizing for you on that particular engagement, that project, that initiative. And other than that, if you want to learn more about real estate as well, you can leave that down in the comments. We have tons of footages and videos and data that we'd be happy to share if there is interest from the audience. So until next time, goodbye and thank you. Bye-bye.